Okay.
Second.
Good morning, this is the New York City Board of Standards and Appeals public hearing for September 19, 2017. We'll begin with special order calendar. We're going to skip to, I'm sorry,
To number 7, decisions.
decision items on the zoning calendar, I apologize. And that item number is 21615BZ, 205 West Fordham Road, the Bronx.
Okay, so I just wanted, because I realize there's so many people here for this. This application was filed in 2015, I believe, and came to the board, it was filed in 2015, and began the hearing process at the board in June of 2016. It's had a total of 5 hearings, and at the last hearing, it was closed. That means no more testimony to be taken, and that the commissioners were ready to make a decision. Yesterday, and so we, this is considered a special hearing. We create these hearings when we have some, like one unusual case. Often it's like a school, and we just consider the school. So, and then we put on little things where we're just gonna make a decision, so it won't take long, and we won't have testimony, right? So, we didn't expect so many people to come. In fact, we advised the city council member that only written testimony would be taken. We received lots and lots of letters yesterday that we have read, and we took that into account when we gave our opinion yesterday in what's known as an executive session. So basically, the commissioners have all expressed their opinions about the case yesterday. That information is available online on our website. We have a video recording of it. And today, all we're going to be doing is voting. So I'm sorry if you came just to watch us vote, but we've already spoken about it, and the applicant is no longer invited to give testimony. So unless we had an open issue, but I don't think that there were any open issues. Okay. So with that, I'd like to make a motion on this, and so it's always a motion to grant no matter what, right?
Mm-hmm.
A motion to grant?
Chair Promoter,
No.
Vice Chair Chanda,
No.
Commissioner Otley Brown.
No. So that means that the application was denied.
Thank you
Okay.
for your consideration.
Thank you.
Eric Palatnik for the record. Thank you.
Should I stop the recording?
Yeah, so that everyone
clear the
knows.
room.
So, yeah, please. Thank
Thank
you
you
all
very
for
much for
coming.
coming.
Sorry
Thank
about
you.
the
Board excellent.
application.
Item number, special order calendar, decision items. Item number 1, 55851BZ, 6822 Northern Boulevard, Queens.
Okay.
Good morning, Eric Palatnik for the applicant, doing a very good job in an ad hoc hearing room.
Thank you. Yeah, sorry about that last one. I was
How it goes.
flustered here. Okay, so for a motion to grant,
Chair Promoter,
aye.
Vice Chair Chanda,
Hi.
Commissioner Otley Brown.
Aye.
Item number 2, 82259BZ, 1774 Victory Boulevard, Staten Island.
Hello, good morning again, same appearance, Eric Palatnik.
Okay, so this one we said, yeah, okay. So this one is going to be a motion, make a motion to grant, but the resolution, which it takes us a little while to get the resolutions out. The resolution won't be issued until their site control at the end of October.
That's great, because they can file for permits then, till then anyway. So
Right,
if you
okay.
could issue a resolution.
Can I ask that you submit a letter saying that control has been
Yeah,
Yes,
once
changed
the
over,
date's
and then
been
I'll
done.
know?
yes.
That-
Yeah, sure.
Okay, good. So on a motion to grant on that kind of internal condition, that wouldn't be a condition that shows up in the resolution.
Chair Promoter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda,
Hi.
Commissioner Otley Brown.
Aye.
Thank you.
Item number 3, 23484BZ, 107682 Forest Avenue, Staten Island.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners, Robert Schuster.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to grant on condition, which we've talked about before. The condition is that graffiti shall be removed immediately upon the graffiti occurring. The building facade shall be painted in uniform colors as opposed to patchwork. Fences and landscaping shall be maintained, repaired, and replaced as needed to keep the site in an orderly fashion. No trash shall be stored in the parking areas or in the side yard. And the side yard is not to be used for storage either, as opposed to trash, okay? And so on that condition, motion to grant.
Chair Promoter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda,
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown.
Aye.
Thank you.
Item number 4, 18385BZ, 206 20th Street, Brooklyn.
Good morning again, Eric Palatnik for the applicant.
Okay, motion to grant?
Chair Promoter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda,
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown.
Aye.
Thank you for your time.
Item number 5, 33605BZ, 495 Broadway, Manhattan.
Good morning, Chris Slowick for Klein Slowick for the applicant.
For a motion to grant?
Chair Promoter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda,
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown.
Thank you.
Appeals calendar, continued hearing items, item number 6, 2016-4327A, 15 East 30th Street, Manhattan.
I think
This case is being deferred
Yeah,
to
tomorrow.
till tomorrow. I just don't know whether there's anybody here for the case, so, okay.
And that's at 22 Reed.
Yeah, 22 Reed, 10 a.m.
Zoning calendar, items, decision items, item number 8, 2016-4147BZ, 57-1258 Place, Queens.
Oh, wait. Just keep scrolling. Okay. We're okay with this. I have so many notes. Okay, this, for a motion to grant.
Withdraw.
They with, application asked to withdraw.
No, oh, I'm sorry, I skipped one, sorry. Oh, that was this one, okay, yeah, applicant, okay, so a motion to allow withdrawal without prejudice.
Chair Promoter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda,
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown.
Aye.
Item number 9, 2016-4277BZ, 7904 151st Avenue, Queens.
For a motion to,
Reed Frank.
oh, hi, sorry. It's strange, because I'm expecting to see here, and there's nobody there, just talking. So for a motion to grant.
Chair Promoter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda,
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Continued hearing items, item number 10, 3114BZ, 165 Spencer Street.
Okay, so this one, this is closed, right?
No,
So
It is.
it is
It's been
closed.
deferred
It's
decision
been
until it's
deferred.
off.
So I think we need to reopen
Reopen.
this just to talk about this strange subject. So for a motion to open.
Chair Promoter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda,
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown.
Moshe Friesen for Free Reading. I'm going to introduce Mr. Phil Carmel, who's the attorney who actually negotiated the contract. I just want to say in short that it's two pieces of equipment. One of them is being told, the gas equipment is totally being replaced with an electric piece of equipment, so it's not a matter of a filter. The second one is also a new engine which meets today's standards, and it's going, according to the contract, has to be filed within 35 days and will be monitored by DEP. A further explanation, I will defer to Mr. Carmel. Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
Good morning. My name is Philip Carmel from the Brown Cave Law Firm, and I'm here on behalf of the applicant to ask the board to grant the special permit. I was retained in February of this year because of the air quality issue. I'm really an environmental lawyer more than a land use lawyer, and I've worked with the client and with the Van Blarkum, which is the adjoining or the nearby manufacturing use, to try to address the air quality issue. And I think we have addressed it successfully. And we have a determination from the New York City Department of Environmental Protection, DEP. We have a letter that we've submitted to the board dated June 29th, 2017. And that letter says that DEP is satisfied that there's no air quality issue in light of the arrangements that we've made. So I could
If it's
stop.
installed.
Right,
Right.
conditional upon us doing what we say we're going to do. So I could stop right there and say, we got DEP sign off after a lot of close scrutiny by the Department of Environmental Protection. They really put us through the ringer, and we submitted many drafts of memos, and they scrutinized it very carefully. But I'm not going to stop right there. I want to try to explain what the situation is, what we did, and why it was reasonable for the Department of Environmental Protection to make the determination that we successfully addressed the air quality issue. We began with the comprehensive air quality analysis, not only of the Van Blarcom facility, but all the other potential sources of air pollution in the area. They were all screened out to the satisfaction of DEP. So then we really focused on the Van Blarcom facility. There are 2 emission sources currently at that facility. They're both combustion sources, meaning a fuel is combust to run equipment. They're compressors in each case. One is a 225 horsepower compressor, and one is a 75 horsepower compressor. And I just want to stop right there to make the point that these are very small sources. I'm not a big fan of sports cars. I don't have a sports car, but there are many sports cars that have more than 225 horsepower. So these are not giant polluting machines. They're relatively small machines with relatively small engines. But they do combust fuel, and therefore they do cause air pollution. The fuel that they combust is natural gas, which, as most people probably know, is a very clean fuel that has relatively low emissions compared to many other sources of energy, such as, for example, diesel fuel. It's a much cleaner fuel. There's very few, very low particulate levels in natural gas, so there's no problem with particles, which is a more particulate matter, which is a more typical pollutant that is sometimes at issue in these types of situations. The issue is NOx emissions, nitrogen oxides, which are emitted by natural gas in low concentrations. The nitrogen oxides, once they get into the atmosphere, can become nitrogen dioxide, which is a particular type of nitrogen oxide. And if they're emitted in large concentrations, then the nitrogen dioxide could exceed a health standard. In 2010, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency promulgated what's called a National Ambient Air Quality Standard for nitrogen dioxide. It's based on the 1 hour concentration. What that means is that even if for almost the whole year concentrations are very low, if there's 1 hour when the wind is very strong and is blowing directly from this Van Blarcom facility to the school, that's really what matters for purposes of this health standard. So in general, throughout the year, the NO2 levels at the school are actually way below the standard. But there are some days the modeling indicates that there would be an exceedance of this 1 hour standard that EPA promulgated in 2010. So that was the problem, and what was our solution to the problem? Well, I said there were 2 sources. The 75 horsepower source, which is the smaller of the 2, we are replacing that equipment with electrical equipment, which doesn't have any air pollution at all. So that is completely the end of that problem. The 225 horsepower equipment, we have reached an agreement with Van Blarcom that there'll be a pollution control equipment placed on that compressor that will reduce the NOx emissions very, very substantially. And the modeling that was done and was approved by the Department of Environmental Protection showed that with the pollution control equipment, there's no more issue of there being an exceedance of the 1 hour NO2 National Ambient Air Quality Standard, which was the original source of the problem. So we think we've solved the problem. Now, I think there's some issues that the board may be concerned about as to whether this really does solve the problem. For example, what if they don't put on the air pollution control equipment? Well, that can be readily addressed by the board in that there can be a condition of the special permit that we can't use the premises as a school until the pollution control equipment is actually installed. And that would be reasonable. Now, what happens if after the pollution control equipment is installed, you know, what happens going forward? A year from now, 5 years from now, what is the mechanism to kind of keep this situation with, with the pollution control equipment actually operating? The mechanism that we worked out with Van Blarkum is that they will amend their air permit that was issued by the New York City Department of Environmental Protection. The name of the permit is called a Certificate of Operation. So that's the name of a DEP air permit. It's called a Certificate of Operation. So they're going to amend their Certificate of Operation, and the letter we received from DEP acknowledges this and says that DEP is okay with that, amending the Certificate of Operation. Now, once they do that, I think this board can rely upon the New York City Air Pollution Control Code, the New York City Air Pollution Code, to, as a mechanism to ensure that the pollution control equipment is actually used going forward. The New York City Air Pollution Code is codified at Title 24 of the New York City Administrative Code. So this is a local law promulgated by the city. And it has several provisions I'd like to bring to the board's attention. Section 24-131 states that a facility must comply with the conditions of the Certificate of Operation, which makes perfect sense. Section 24-155 says that if there is an apparatus, which is their name for pollution control equipment, if you go back to the definition section, if there's an apparatus on the facility owner is required to maintain the apparatus. So if, for some reason, down the road, this pollution control equipment were to break and needed to be fixed or replaced, the air pollution code would require maintenance and fixing the pollution control equipment. That's section 24-155. There's a specific provision of the air pollution code, section 124-156, that says that it is unlawful to operate a source that has a certificate of operation without using the apparatus that's in the certificate of operation. Now, the certificate of operation is good for 3 years. It has to be renewed every 3 years. That's in section 124-122. And the renewal process requires an application. It needs to be certified by a professional engineer, professional architect, or other professional that the source is operating in compliance with the administrative code, with the air pollution code. And alterations of the facility relating to the air pollution mechanism are prohibited without the approval of the New York City Department of Environmental Protection. So we think this is a very reasonable mechanism that the board can rely upon to make an assumption as to what the air pollution will be going forward at this Van Blarkum facility. Yes?
Sorry to bother you. Can you repeat 24-156, what it required? I didn't get the full.
24-156 says that it's unlawful to operate without the apparatus, without the pollution control equipment, that once it's installed. So I think it's reasonable for the board to rely upon the DEP permit. But don't take my word for it, because that's what the CEQR technical manual says itself, which is, as I'm sure the board is aware, is the city's procedure book for assessing potential environmental impacts. Page 17-33 of the CEQR technical manual says that when the city is doing an air quality analysis for a potential action, like issuing a special permit, for example, the air quality analysis is based on the DEP certificate of operation, if there is one. And in this case, there is one. So I think it would be, frankly, unreasonable for the board to depart from that guidance and say that the DEP certificate of operation is not sufficient. But there's more, which is, would it, one could hypothesize, well, maybe Van Blarkum will just ignore their permit and violate the air pollution control code. Would that be reasonable for the board to assume? And I think the answer is no. There's actually an appellate division second department case on this point, which I'm sure the board is familiar with. It's called Dimilia, D-I-M-I-L-I-A versus Bennett, B-E-N-N-E-T-T, reported at 149 AD 2nd, 592, appellate division second department, 1989. And that's a case where the board denied it was actually an appeal, denied an appeal of a property owner. And the board was concerned that the property would not be used in conformance with the zoning resolution. And the appellate division second department said, well, you really have to assume that they're going to comply with the law, and you can't assume otherwise.
But isn't that a little different because we don't have any relationship to Van Blarkum here at the board, right?
It is different in that respect, absolutely. But I think it is reasonable for the board to assume that the Van Blarkum facility is going to comply with their legal obligations under the air pollution code. And again, the DEP is really the city agency with the greatest expertise as to air quality, and this has been found sufficient to them.
Does Van Blarkum already have a permit?
They do have a certificate of operation, and it's going to be amended to require the apparatus.
Oh, wait a minute, so their certificate of operation allowed them to exceed these NO2 levels?
Well, there was no analysis as to the potential impacts of the facility, and of course the school did not exist when their certificate of operation was completed.
Oh, wait, but didn't the permit say you have to comply with the
Air pollution
code, the air pollution code?
Right. I mean, the certificate of operation requires that the facility be operated in conformance with the conditions set forth in the certificate. There's no, I guess, general language about don't emit anything that's harmful to human health.
But what are the terms of this certificate? It doesn't say comply with whatever the law is. I mean, the question is, because it seems, obviously, we're not experts in the subject of NO2 emissions, but when we learned about the level of NO2, it was quite astonishing what the level was, and it's all coming from this two little machines, relatively little machines, right? And so what's been surprising to us is that the schools had to step in as the enforcer, where DEP should be the enforcer, and we actually don't understand that.
Right. Let me, look. Our objective is to build a school and operate our school. We could have taken a different path, which is we could have brought a lawsuit against Van Blarkum saying they're violating the New York State law. New York State law prohibits deleterious emissions that would cause a contravention of the National Ambient Air Quality Standards. We could have taken that approach. We could have said, you have to pay for the pollution control equipment. We didn't go down that route because we thought we would be tied up for a lengthy period of time. We really want to, we have an urgent need to open the building as a school, and we thought that trying to make friends with our neighbors was the prudent approach. And we reached an agreement with them. It's acceptable to New York City DEP. We're reducing air pollution in the city, which is a good thing, and we're protecting the air quality at our location, which is obviously what the school is most concerned about. So, we could have pursued different routes. We could have asked agencies to bring lawsuits or enforcement proceedings, but that's not what we did. We didn't think it was as practical.
Right, but my question was more, doesn't Van Blarkum already have a history of ignoring its permits? So why should it react any differently in the future? What is there that would force it to comply with the certificate today, once the equipment's installed, and then 3 years from now, extend the certificate?
Well, we'd violate New York City law, and DEP
It is doing
could...
that, but isn't
It
it
is.
doing that
Right.
at present?
No.
No.
But you
We're-
said it had, okay, I'm then confused. I thought you said it has a certificate of operation,
Right, but the
but
certificate...
it's still in violation of the exceedance level.
Right, but the certificate of operation that it has doesn't require using the pollution control equipment that has not yet been installed.
No,
And the
but-
certificate of operation does not require a reduction in the NOx emissions
So
of
this
the
certificate of
facility.
operation was for a different source, different factor, you're saying?
No. It was for the equipment that they have, but our school was not there, and the NOx emissions here are very low. This is a very small natural gas
So-
equipment. It doesn't require...
My understanding is that the
pollution.
exceedance level that we are talking about, regardless of whether the school is there or not, it is well over the required permitted standard.
That is not correct.
No.
It results in an exceedance of a national ambient air quality standard at the roof of the school. But the school is not operating at this time. That is not itself a violation of New York City law. There are many sources in the city that result in exceedances without contravening their permit.
So you're saying they're fully complying with the CO in place without the school?
As far as I know, I mean, I'm not, I have no reason to believe they're going to
So they've been
violate the air
meeting all
pollution
the
code.
requirements of every 3 years submitting, going through all the necessary checks at DEP, all of that.
I can't say I'm fully familiar with their compliance history, but just because we did some modeling and showed at the roof of the school building, a couple hours a year, we'll have an exceedance of the NO2 1-hour standard, which was promulgated in 2010. That in and of itself certainly does not suggest that they're violating their certificate of operation.
But I'm a little confused. You said New York state law prohibits deleterious emissions. So aren't they in violation of New York state law? Wouldn't that by sort of, I don't know what a certificate says on it, but it seems to me it would say something to the effect, shall comply with all laws or something, right? So if it's a violation of state, either it is or it isn't, right? That's a,
I don't think it's a violation now because we're not operating the school.
So does it become a violation only when certain uses are co-located next to it or are located adjacent? So if there were other industrial uses surrounding it, it would not be an issue where where a non-compliance has been noted? And it's just that you're introducing a school and the standards are higher? Is it something like that?
yeah, I think.
Let me try to explain this, okay? Because obviously I'm not getting my point across. The certificate of operation that they currently have does not have any requirements in it relating to control of nitrogen oxide emissions.
Right, but
It
maybe
doesn't
if we
address-
saw the certificate, that would help us understand, because the certificate says whatever it says on it, right? And either they are in violation of law or they aren't in violation of law, that shouldn't be gray, right?
Go ahead.
The national standards came out in 2010. I believe this equipment predates the 2010.
Well,
It's
but there's no
grandfathered equipment. When you have grandfathered equipment, the way it works in the building department, the way it works in DEP, is they don't make you change it.
Buildings department's a little different than like a major polluter source.
It's
According to
like this
that,
is-
like all the spills on gas stations would never be cleaned, right?
But
Because
this is
they're
not- They
grandfathered.
don't consider this a major a source, and it's a grandfathered piece of equipment. The certificate of operation permitted them to have it. If they would go today for a new, if they would be putting in a new one, they would be required to meet all the standards. But this is an old piece of equipment, which we're updating, and it's no longer no piece of equipment.
Right, that is correct. I mean, there is something called RACT. We're getting into the weeds here, but there's a state law that requires reasonable available control technology, RACT, for major sources of NOx emissions. That actually applies to pre-installed equipment. So that's kind of the exception to the grandfathering, but that is only for major sources. And this equipment is very small. It's well below the threshold for a major source. They don't even have a New York State air permit. And the reason they don't have an air permit from New York State DEC is it's too small. It doesn't require an air permit. This is not a major source of air pollution. It really isn't. I don't know how to communicate that more.
Okay, so I think one of the things is, we've had this case before us for 3 years, right? And somewhere pretty long ago, like 2.5 years ago, the subject of emissions came up where there was a modeling that turned out to be incorrect, and then the EP kept pushing and saying, you need to remodel this, and eventually we learned what the NO2 situation was, and then eventually the school actually figured out how to pinpoint the polluter, right? So we've never been presented with information that says the polluter is actually not a polluter, they're just a business that's, doing its thing legally. The way it was presented to us really from the beginning was that they're the bad guys. We, the school, are going to figure out some way of addressing this, and then the school started its various negotiations and came up with this idea, right? So this is actually news to us, and and we go a lot by the regulations that you've cited and looking at the certificates and then discussing it with DEP and so on, so that we can really understand what kind of risk we're in here, because our understanding was that this polluter was violating the law, and that and the board unfortunately is exposed to a lot of bad actors who don't correct their bad actions, and there's no way that the board can force them to. And so the board was hoping to rely on DEP to enforce against the bad actor, and then surprisingly, it wasn't doing that. And so, here we are trying to sort of figure out our way on this, and feeling and by the way, this isn't only a seeker issue. This is a finding in the special permit that the children are not put to any particular danger by going to this school. And so, hearing about these NO2 levels, we're all imagining who in their right mind would send their kid to a school, to the school, if they knew about this, right? Even descending the school bus or walking the extra few blocks of the school gave us concerns, because we also talked about putting filtration on the school itself. And we said, okay, that might address it with a closed window condition, but what about all those times that the children are standing outside the school waiting to load onto the bus, and all the kinds of things that kids do in the neighborhood? It's even more horrifying because there's actually a residence across the street from the school site, and so those people are daily breathing this, right? So we're really learning for the first time, so you kind of need to be, A, patient with us because it's first time, and B, back up everything with the statutes that you're referring to and a copy of the certificate and so on, and help us understand, first of all, how Van Blarcom is not violating the law currently, and so therefore not a bad actor, because that's not the impression we've been given the opposite impression. And then to help us also understand how, let's say, Van Blarcom's failure to do any of those things that it's required to do on the certificate would be enforced by DEP, since DEP is supposed to be the enforcer, right? Like, what would happen? Do they issue violations? Are the violations significant? I mean, is there motivation for a property owner to comply with the terms of the certificate and its renewals? Because there's no parity between no linkage between the BSA and Van Blarcom. We're relying totally on the school to take care of property that does not belong to them, which is a very strange thing for us to be involved in, and we have no mechanism for following up on that. so, because we don't have any enforcement capabilities here. So that's the difficult situation we've been in for a long time, but it's really helpful that you've explained this. Total news to us, right?
But
Okay.
if I can just say, if this pollution control equipment were on the Van Blarkum facility to begin with, we would do the air quality analysis, assuming that it would operate, if that was in the certificate of operation. We would have had concentrations below the National Ambient Air Quality Standard. Everyone would have said, fine, no problem. There's no air quality issue here.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
so we're kind of putting the situation in that,
Well, okay,
in that light.
one of the things
Yeah.
that we had hoped over these many years this application's been before us is that the subject would go away. So it was kind of like we were hoping that the school would just go and have a conversation with Van Blarkum, and the next time they did their air quality analysis, everything came out great, right? Instead, we got sort of pulled into the behind-the-scenes negotiations, which makes us kind of involved. And the better answer is they install the equipment, you do another air quality test, and there are many other businesses all around, and those businesses didn't seem to be producing something of concern, right? And we don't go in and look at the certificates of every single business and make sure that their permits are current and all that. We don't do it. When we do an air quality analysis, we get copies of the permit, or we get the air quality analyst finds out what the permitting is, and then from that is able to model the situation, right? And that's it. No, we don't look behind the permits. So if it was sort of made to go away, so it's not an approval based on a condition that Van Blarkum does its thing and the school works with them, that's kind of a different situation, I think. I mean, feel free, I see the consternation.
No, well, that would put them in the position that you just mentioned, that it would be a situation like it was tested and nothing ever got flagged.
Right.
And so then there wouldn't be any worry that we are signing off on something and we don't have jurisdiction over that
Right.
neighboring site. So that's what I think. I mean,
Yeah.
Well,
So,
we can go forward and put the pollution control equipment in and then come back to the board. But, we can do that, but you could also issue the approval and then condition the certificate of occupancy on that being done.
no, because we can't do that, because the issue is, now children move into the school, right? Let's say tomorrow, the children move into the school. Nothing gets installed on the Van Blarkum site, and the NO2 levels remain at those crazy numbers. What are we supposed to do? Vacate the school? It doesn't work.
Well, we can't operate the school without the certificate of occupancy.
Well, let's just say that's not our experience in the field. Our experience in the field often is that schools are occupied even before they come to the board of standards, right? So we can't work on the assumption that they're going to get a C of O, because hardly anybody does. They occupy before. It's just a reality. We have to face the reality.
How about, because it's going to take a couple of months to get approval in the building department. Making the approval of the building department plans conditional upon the equipment being in. It just gives us time to
You mean
move ahead.
prior to permit? In
Prior
other
to
words, it
permit,
has to be
correct.
installed prior to permit?
Right.
What do you think about that?
but then we don't get to see the air quality test
You will.
done.
Right.
and
And
passed.
we have to submit the air quality report back to you.
I don't know if this has been done. What if we give it just like 6-month approval, enough to start the building permit application, all the process, and then after 6 months, they report to us with the completion of installation of everything, and then we issue the complete resolution for the occupancy and full operation of the school.
So that's an interesting one.
Special permit for 6 months.
No, Commissioner Shonda's thinking of something else. It's an approval to apply for a permit, for a building permit,
Right.
and then, but it isn't an approval to go forward
use?
for the use. I don't.
So they have to come back with air quality, and then
Right.
only if it's below, only if it's passing air quality, then you grant. What if it doesn't?
Yeah, then you're doing all this I don't like, it's
based on
very.
the model, so if the equipment is installed,
Oh,
then the analysis would be rerun as if it was operating.
Mm-hmm, right. I don't know that we would have to figure out how to do that. I'm not really sure that there's a way to do that. To do it in two parts like that. We have done things where we have a very short time period on an approval, but I don't like the idea of an approval before this equipment is installed. So, it's been going on for years, right? So my question is, why can't the equipment just be installed? Then we don't have to know about it anymore. This is, again, it's involving us in the behind the scenes, and that's what's compromising, right?
How long does it take to install and get all the necessary paperwork in order?
14 weeks.
For the
Up to 14
DEP, for the
weeks.
DEP part, I don't want the school part, just the
Up to
DEP.
14 weeks.
14 weeks.
For the DEP permits to install the equipment?
It is all being done
You have to
simultaneously.
identify yourself, gentlemen, I'm sorry.
Sean Greenbaum, President Middle Square. Okay, the contract we have, the contract Van Bachem made with the company to install, they say they need 4 to 6 weeks to order the equipment, then bring it in, and other 4 to 8 weeks to install something like it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's the 12 weeks, whatever, of installation, and in the meantime, permitting isn't that big a deal to install equipment. It's not the same as a building permit for, I mean, you're replacing one piece of equipment with another piece, and you're installing a piece, right?
One piece of equipment doesn't even need a permit.
Okay, so you don't even need a permit, so you could
Right.
do it as soon as you receive it, you put it in there, right? And then the permit for the pollution control, I don't know, is there a long-term permit on that?
Are you
Why
talking
would
about
that-
the Department of Buildings permit?
No,
the
why would you
DEP.
need a Department of Buildings permit for
I don't think
pollution?
you do.
I
It's
don't
all
think you
very
do.
small equipment. This is
Yeah.
not, if you're thinking like a power plant or
No,
something, that's
we're-
not what this is.
yeah,
This
yeah.
is very small.
No, so that's
Yeah.
why I'm not understanding. So we've been doing this for a really, really long time, right?
The reason we
Yeah.
didn't install it up till yet, because we just got the approval from DEP that it's okay to go ahead
Understood.
with it. That's the reason. So
Yeah.
now we went back and forth to do the contract, now we're ready to go ahead and install. We figured we're gonna wait until this to see what the board
What
wants us
happened?
to do.
Okay, so I would recommend, I think that's what everybody here feels, it's the cleanest, just install this thing, sign your deals with Van Blarkum, it's not our business, so that it's not even included in our resolution or anything that you have a deal with Van Blarkum, you're just making the pollution go away, right? And it's great that you're doing that, by the way, the neighborhood should really,
Yeah, thank you.
if they knew.
Well, you know, the board has issued a special permit to another school that falls within this neighborhood. And they're
Well, I don't-
actually,
Yeah.
and
Prior
they're,
to
see, this
this.
Prior to
project,
this
what
even
we're
coming up.
doing, because what we're doing helps everybody.
Yes, no,
Right.
that's why
Undisputed.
we think, from a general world policy perspective, this is a great thing that you're doing, right? But we just need to make sure that it doesn't run up against the findings for this school and the fact that another school was approved because the modeling wasn't accurate, or
It
what can we
wasn't
do?
required at the time. Standards change. DEP changes. You
Well,
understand?
you can't say it's a bad thing to find out that kids are exposed to huge amounts of NO2 and that you want to protect them, so.
But this is not the case. It's 1-2 hours a year we're talking about this. On the roof, not on the ground. We went through this analysis. Look at the analysis. It's really a minor thing. We're not talking about a lot of pollution. It's on the roof 1 or 2 hours a year.
But so if it's the federal standard, what do we do about the federal standard, right?
That's what the federal standard is. It's a 1 hour standard.
Okay, so if the federal government, which is often quite lax with respect to industrial pollutions, decides that industrial contaminants in general, decides that this is the standard, then this is the standard, right?
We're
So,
not
okay, good,
arguing
so,
with that. We're taking care of it.
okay, we appreciate that you're taking care of it, so you just need to take care of it. Okay?
Has the contract with Van Blarkum been executed?
Yes,
It has. Can you provide an executed copy of
yes.
your submission?
Okay, great. So, Then we don't need all that backup information, right,
Well,
about
you-
certificates?
You don't really need the contract anymore if we take care of
Right.
it.
Correct.
That is true.
Do you
That's
want the
true.
contract, or do you, or you
No,
you
we-
just
I-
don't
We
want?
probably
the-
don't want it.
We don't
You
want it,
don't.
because then it's in the record, and then, no? You think we need it? I don't see why we need it.
Why do you need it? If we're going to
just
rerun
need
the
to know-
I
analysis-
mean, how do we, otherwise, how do we justify
Well, we've been
3 years
taking
of
an
hearing on a
Oh,
school
we
special
could-
permit application?
Well, we could talk about 3 years of hearing as in there was a pollution situation which has been rectified. And, you know, modeling in those days came out to be X and modeling today turns out to be Y. That's all I can think of.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would need a new model.
Yeah, we need a new
Updated
model,
report.
right?
Without,
No, we have modeling that shows that with the pollution control equipment, there's no issue.
Right, and I think
Right.
once that is installed, we just want to, for the record, a revised model that
Yeah.
indicates that the issue has been resolved. And
Right.
that way, we don't need to know the source of the
Isn't that right?
issue, that
I think
that
it's
the
fine,
issue
yeah.
has been
I think
resolved.
We can say that there were a lot of hearings or deferrals because of a pollution situation
Okay.
that has since been resolved and new modeling was conducted.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so if I'm understanding what the board is, the direction we're receiving is, if we get the pollution control equipment installed, and if we get the certificate of operation for Van Blarkum amended to require the operation of the facility with that pollution control equipment, we should then resubmit an air quality memo that indicates that in light of circumstances that would exist at that time, there's no issue in terms of exceedance of the NACs, and then come back before the board at that time.
Correct.
Okay.
2.5, 3 months.
Okay.
Let's just get all the equipment in and not have to come back again. Maybe we can grant at that time.
So just, how about December 12th? Good? That's 1, 2, 2.5 months. You want longer?
What?
January 9th?
Yeah, but we're early. Yeah, don't worry. It's Hanukkah.
January 9th?
No,
December
December 12th. December 12th. This
Okay,
month.
December 12th. Okay, December
Believe me,
12th for decision. Oh, we have to close again.
Have to close.
Did you want a submission date?
No,
Um,
and just leave the record open for a new air quality report.
right.
Oh, so that can be whenever
Yeah, and
you
that
get
can
it.
be whenever we get it,
Mhm.
really. Okay, so for a motion to close?
Chair Promoter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda,
Hi,
Ms. Shockley Brown.
Aye. Thank you. Thank you
Thank you
all for
very much.
coming.
thank you, this was very.
Yeah, very helpful. Thank you. I kind of wish we knew this about 100
Ages
years
ago.
ago. Thank you.
Item number 11, 17315 BZ, 157 Kent Avenue, Brooklyn.
Just a second.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Frank St. Jacques Sheldon Lobel, PC for the applicant.
Okay. Sorry, okay, for a motion to grant?
Let's close.
Oh, I'm,
We need
do I
to
have to
close
close
it.
it? Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Okay, it says right there I should close it, and then I didn't ignore. For a motion to close?
Chair Promoter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda,
Hi,
Ms. Shockley Brown.
Aye. For a motion to grant?
Chair Promoter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda,
hi.
Ms. Shockley Brown.
Aye.
Thank you.
Item number 12, 2016-4131 BZ, 901 Quinton Road, Brooklyn.
Is this us?
That is really.
Good morning, Todd Dale for the applicant. So from review session, I know there were a few questions that were raised. Just to address those quickly. There was a question regarding the buses and where they're stored. Just to confirm, the school doesn't own its own buses, it contracts the buses.
Okay.
And the company is located in Mill Basin and they have a lot on Strickland Avenue. So when they're not bringing the students to or taking them out, the buses are stored at the company's lot. I believe there was a question regarding the bicycle parking. Just to clarify with the bicycle parking, the latest report said that the expectation is to be 60 students that would use bicycles. There still are 43 that are proposed on the lot, but as we noted last time, when I brought the photos again, there are cycle parking on the street that the students currently use that have space for roughly 25 to 30 bicycles. So those exterior bicycle parking spots and the ones on the lot would be sufficient for the expected bicycles for students. One thing to note, though, the design was changed because it was brought up, I believe the chair brought up the funneling issue that might happen. We did put in a wall next to the cycling area to try and help streamline the entrance. And then the last question, I know was there a comment about the raised first floor. As they were looking at the designs, the architect was not able to attend today, but he wanted to note a couple points that one of the primary reasons for having a raised first floor was to allow natural light to get into the lower level. It makes it easier to bring light into the cafeteria and the gym. It also provides a taller ceiling for the gymnasium and athletic activities because we had submitted the boring report saying there's only so low we can go before we run into difficulties. So that's why it's raised up to the first floor. And it actually ends up that the cellar level, though it's not exact with the existing school, it's much closer than it was, so it allows for the food service and much easier travel.
It's a pretty big distance.
No, I'm gonna say that between the existing building, he told me that the cellar at the existing building and the cellar in the new proposed building, that because of where the cellar level is, that there's just a slight grade difference there, and it makes it easier to go back and
The section
forth.
shows it as an enormous difference, like 4 or 5 feet.
I don't think it was. He said it was less than it was. I'm just quoting from what he said.
Oh,
but
less
he said-
than, maybe it was 5 feet, now it's 4
originally,
feet.
But really, the primary focus was to allow more natural light
Okay.
and to provide sufficient area for.
But there's actually a flight of stairs that you have to go down in order to get to the lower gym, which
Sort of.
means you can't, like, kind of expand gym activities, so, all right. Anyway,
That was the thought. It
just adds
noted,
all these
but-
staircases to the entire building and makes for a very strange entry condition. Like, everyone's always going up the stairs, no matter what,
Noted,
Okay.
he said though, but in the end, that the light and the higher ceilings for the gymnasium were of greater benefit. So that was the thought
Okay.
behind it. As someone who used to play basketball in school, the big spin, I like the higher ceilings, so I appreciate his design.
Okay.
I don't know if there are any other questions. Those were the
I think
core
those were the
questions.
only ones, right? Did anybody else have questions? So we could close this, right? Are there any speakers on this? Not that there's room for speakers today? Okay. So for a motion to close?
Chair Perlmutter?
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda?
Aye.
Commissioner Oakley Brown?
Aye.
Any objection to us voting on it now?
No.
No.
Okay. For a motion to grant?
Chair Perlmutter?
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda?
Aye.
Commissioner Oakley Brown?
Aye.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item number 13, 2016-4337 BZ, 127 Vanderbilt Street, Brooklyn.
Hello, good afternoon, or good morning, Eric Palatnik. I think this hearing room works well, everyone wants to get out of here quick. So we've amended some of the plans to make things more clear, as you had asked yesterday at the review session, which I could pass up to you, but basically to document that the side yard is an existing condition and there's no enlargement or waiver proposed in the side yard. And we put that note on the zoning analysis sheets and on 2 of the plan sheets, so that's crystal clear for the board. And we've also created a historical document which includes the tax map as well as an explainer explaining the tax map was created before in either 2008 or before, as well as we provide Sanborn maps in the 1974 deed, all to demonstrate the existence of the lot before 2008. And we've updated the statement of facts and findings to include all that. So
Okay.
that was everything you'd asked for yesterday. I have it here to pass up,
Okay.
but we'll make a formal submission as well.
I think the 1974 deed doesn't have a meets and bounds description. I think it says, go see the 1954 deed. That's why I wanted to see the 1954 deed. It wasn't to make you go back in history because,
Oh, well, I'll take a look at that.
yeah, I think that's the reason. I'm not 100% sure.
And we'll get that and we can submit that to you.
Okay.
believe those are all the questions.
Okay, yeah, right, I think it was, oh, and we wanted your statement of facts to be clear about the reason that we can grant this. You know, there's findings, you have to say that the lot can't be developed in any other way without this,
Yes.
and explain why. You said it's an unbuilt, somehow or other, it's not
We've
feasible, but
updated-
you didn't explain why
I
not.
have here an updated statement of facts that addresses everything to do with that.
Okay, good, all right. But you didn't submit that yet, right?
We did not.
Okay,
It
all
does
right.
speak to why it precludes any horizontal enlargement, and it explains why it's not feasible.
Okay, okay, I think that was it then. So, any comments from board members? There are no speakers. Okay, so, I don't know if we can close because we haven't looked at the materials, so we really need to look at the materials. So we can put this on for continued, I don't know when.
And potentially, if the board is satisfied,
Yeah, sure,
that'd be
obviously.
great.
Yeah. So, bad
Got
news.
this afternoon.
Yeah, I was thinking about
We
that.
have a few hours.
We
before
have
Oh,
the
you're
executive
right.
session.
Wow.
Yeah, we can have them fix
Listen
that.
to that as a suggestion, I'm liking that, okay, so we'll put it on for
Well, really,
second
you're just looking
call.
for the 54 deed, really.
Yeah,
that's all you need
well,
by
what you
definition.
need to do is just check the 70, whatever deed that is, and make sure there's a meets and bounds description.
We will make
'Cause
sure.
I
and
don't
we'll have that.
remember why I was,
Thank you for
looking at
suggesting this
54.
afternoon.
We
The
can
family
second call
appreciates it.
this in the afternoon.
yeah, right,
Thank
okay,
you.
so this is
Family
on for
appreciates
second
it.
call.
Thank you very much on behalf of
Yeah.
the Chickadee family. Thank you.
Do you want to hand out the hard copies so you guys don't have to look at the?
Yeah, if
If you have hard copies,
Yeah, he
that
has
would
hard
make it
copies.
easier.
Yeah, well, you know what, let her do everything at once, so she'll bring in one whole set at once.
No,
with
no, we
everything.
want to read it.
No, no, no,
Oh, we wanna
while
do
you're
it now.
submitting it electronically, they can read it
Sure.
before 1 PM.
Thank you for spending
Okay,
the
so
time.
this will conclude the
This
morning
concludes
session.
The morning calendar resume at 2 PM, 1 PM,
1 p.m.
sorry.
1 PM.
1 PM for the new cases.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, this is the Board of Standards and Appeals public hearing for September 19, 2017. We'll begin with the second call case from this morning, item number 13, 2016 4337BZ, 127 Vanderbilt Street, Brooklyn.
Good afternoon, Eugene Pillman on behalf of Eric Blatt and PC. At issue is some historic documents which we submitted. One of the required findings for ZR 7369 is that the lot existed on April 30th, 2008. We provided a historic tax map, several Sanborn maps from 1989 till 2007, and a deed from 1978, which indicates the meets and bounds of the property. We highlighted in yellow, and if you track along the copy, it parallels the conditions shown on the plans, 150 by 50 by 50 by 32, then by 100, indicating that the lot existed in 1978.
And in terms of the I think the Sanborn map, the guy who went out to draw the Sanborn map was dyslexic. Because he put the house on the wrong side of the lot, but meanwhile we have 1948 drawings, that buildings department drawings that show it where it currently is. So that's quite confusing about the Sanborn guy, but what can we do? Okay. And then we also asked that the drawings be corrected just to make clearer where the scope of the waivers are, and the statement of facts be clearer about the requirements under the special permit.
And we did provide a revised statement of facts discussing the infeasibility of developing, and we provided revised proposed plans, which indicate that the side yard will remain as existing with no further increases in the non-compliance.
Okay, good. All right, so I don't think there are any other issues. Are there any speakers on this? Okay, so we can close.
Chair Promoter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda,
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown.
Aye.
And I'd like to make a motion to grant.
Chair Promoter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda,
Hi.
Commissioner Otley Brown.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, afternoon calendar, item number 1, new cases, 2017-45BZ, 3896 10th Avenue, Manhattan.
If you don't mind, I'd like to stand. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, and members of the board. I'm Deirdre Carson from Greenberg Traurig, and we represent the Inwood Academy for Leadership, a New York City charter school on whose behalf the instant application has been filed. This is an application for a special permit pursuant to ZR Section 7319 to permit the Academy's new high school to locate within an existing building in a C83 district. The property in question, located at 3896 10th Avenue in the Inwood section of Manhattan, is developed with what was formerly a two-story parking garage and automotive services and repair facility, and is in an area rich with public transportation, centrally located within the school's catchment area and just a few blocks from the Academy's middle school, with which the high school will share faculty, staff, and recreational facilities. The area in which the property is located is part of an area that has been the focus of a joint study by EDC and the Department of City Planning for a rezoning that will make the proposed use of the building as of right. However, that proposal is not expected to become law until next summer at the earliest, and the school is in need of replacement facilities for its high school right now. The new school would replace rented shared facilities, providing 19,000 square feet of area, with a dedicated facility nearly twice as large, providing classroom space for up to 500 students in grades 9 through 12. With the additional space, the school will be able to eliminate the staggered schedule it currently employs to serve its student population, and also to include a senior class, a 12th grade class, within the school. The school was founded back in 2010, shows how old I am, in 2010, and they have been adding grades as the years have gone by, so that the school has now goes from middle school to the end of high school. As detailed in our application submissions, the property was selected after an exhaustive search, identifying 140 properties, narrowed down to 15, and this one was selected because it so ideally meets the school's requirements as to the centrality of its location, budget, and adaptive reuse rather than new construction. Other sites that could satisfy the school's mission were mostly beyond its means or didn't meet the school's time constraints. Our submission materials show the measures that will be taken to address the separation of the school from noise, traffic, and other adverse effects, as well as the consideration that will go into making the trip to and from school safe for these high school children. One measure that the school will seek to implement is the creation of a reservoir curb area at the intersection of 10th Avenue and Post Road to reduce the width of the intersection that students will need to cross to get to the nearest subway station, which is only a block from the school. This application was reviewed by Community Board 12, in which the project is located, and a favorable recommendation for the special permit was adopted by nearly unanimous vote. The school provides a very significant community service, as 85% of its population qualifies for free or reduced price school lunches on the basis of income. Its success is demonstrated by the fact that the waiting list includes more than 1,000 children. Clearly, the advantages to the community of granting this special permit far outweigh any hazards or disadvantages, and if granted, the school will have no adverse effect on the privacy, quiet, light, or air of the surrounding neighborhood. We therefore urge the board to act favorably on the special permit for the reasons stated at length in our various submissions. We attended yesterday's review session and are aware of questions the board has regarding a few issues. I'm joined today by Jenny Chardo and Christina Reyes here from the school, officers of the Academy, Allison Ruddock and Max Stember-Young from VHB, who can address issues concerning the EAS, Nathan Epler of Rue Engineering, who can address questions regarding the status and requirements of the pending Brownfields application with OER, and Gary Hansen of Spector Group Architects, who can speak to any issues you have regarding the plans. So I'm going to go through the questions as I had them from our notes, and then if there are others, we'd be happy to address them. We were asked to provide more information on the school's plans for physical education and security. We were also asked to clarify some issues about the crosswalks and the pattern of transportation and walking, if you will, in the immediate vicinity of the school. And I'd like Christina and Jenny to speak to that.
So I'll just start with the PE.
State your name, please.
I'm sorry, Christina Reyes, Executive Director. So I'll just start with the question about PE. We currently are in two different locations. One of them has a gym, which we have shared for after-school activities. The other currently does not, so we utilize the local parks. The new space will actually give us a PE space inside the building. And we have been able to fulfill all of our PE requirements by the state through either the park or our neighboring middle school that has a gym. But now we will actually have an additional space within the building, so it gives us even more opportunities for physical activity, which can include a gamut of activities, but not full court basketball. It's not a typical gym, but
So that's the cafeteria space?
it is.
It'll be multi-purpose.
It'll be a
Okay.
multi-purpose space. So we'll push the tables and the chairs, and it will give us that space to house our gym, our PE.
Okay.
So we've been able in the past with the high school to actually fulfill the requirements without that space previously. So this is actually a upgrade for us.
It's an upgrade because you didn't have that extra little multi-purpose space. Okay. And it fits, that 120 people is what it says, but when you're doing gym in a space like that, how
We
many
wouldn't
people?
have that many.
So it'd be like a couple of classes at
It'd
a
be
time?
1 to 2 classes.
Okay.
And Jenny wants to talk about
And the roof is not proposed to be used?
in the future, but that would be a phase 2 or a phase 3 project, not currently in the scope of work for this current renovation because of the costs. But we do hope that in the future that would be
So
added.
it might be more efficient that even if you choose not to open it for several years, you include it in the scope of this application, because for one, sometimes rooftop spaces require a little further investigation about whether there are environmental conditions that might indicate that the kids shouldn't be on the roof.
Okay.
And you won't be able to do that kind of a change by letter with us.
However, they would need to update the analysis of it. If
Yeah.
they did it now, it would be out of date, I believe. You can't predict the future. So if they came back.
Right,
with an
oh, I
amendment,
see.
It would be more recent.
If they came back, if they came back for an amendment, they'd have to update the environmental
But it would
analysis.
be closer in time to the time they were
Yeah.
actually using the roof for,
But
rather than
if they-
relying on an EAS done now for use on the roof that would be
No,
for
but
like
what
5
I'm
or 6
saying
years.
is if they included the use now, then let's say next year they could install it. That's not so far away in time, right?
Right.
And then they wouldn't have to come back to us for anything. Is that correct?
I think this, if this is Deirdre Carson, I think the school's feeling is it may be more than just a year before they'll be able to implement it. And if there's a rezoning, there may be also some consideration about enlarging the school to making it a bigger project. And I think they want to leave that open because they will have a lot more FAR if they're rezoned as currently appears
And
to be
then
the
actually
case.
you don't even need this waiver, you could abandon.
Yeah, as of right.
Yes.
Right, okay, so if you abandon the waiver, then you no longer are
No
under
longer
our
need to come-
jurisdiction and you can
Exactly.
put a playground,
Yeah.
okay.
And then I'm Jenny Pichardo, I'm gonna address the security question that was asked yesterday. We do outsource security for each of our facilities, so there will be a security guard at the entrance, greeting visitors and students when they arrive and also when students depart. In addition to security guard, we have our staff members, including Christine and myself, that we do supervise departure, so we make sure the students are walking along to where they need to be. We don't hold their hands because they're 16 years old and they don't want to be. But we do make sure that they're dispersed from the neighborhood and going to wherever they need to get to safely and timely, making sure there's no hanging out or loitering in front of the building or in the neighborhood.
But how does, I'm just looking at the plan, like where does the security guard stand or whatever to make sure that only students and people are supposed to be there are in the lobby, enter through those doors?
This is the only door that you can enter from the street. with
Right.
the key. So the security facility will be just inside this door.
Yeah,
So there would be a desk there?
yeah,
or
we
the
normally have
security
a
guard?
desk right now in the
Okay.
entrance of each building. And we have a key card system, so any staff member has access with the key card. Anybody else does have to buzz in, or the security guard will open the door and they sign in.
So it's buzz. And when the students come, though, it's people standing, teachers standing there making sure that the students actually belong, right?
Yes.
They have IDs and they also have, this is Christina right here. They also have, they have IDs and they have uniforms. So any student without a uniform would automatically be identified as a student not from the school. And they also have IDs.
And our principal stands up in the front door along with the director of culture just to greet the students in the morning and the deans. So it's a system, and we make sure no one comes in that shouldn't be in the building.
The other question had to do with the crosswalks and the nearby street network, and it's related to what you were discussing, Jenny. I don't know how you.
We use staff to monitor exits and entrances, so they have duty that would include either, welcoming in the morning and or dismissal. And during that time, we space staff out around the building. And that would give students, safe passage, as it were. And that allows students to, go to the train or the bus, which are both very, very close to the school. And almost all of our students either take the 1 or the 12 bus, which is very, very close.
No, my question was more, and, I know these are high school students and they're going to school on their own, and who knows even where they live could be more hazardous, right? It was simply that there was a statement in the statement of facts that the teachers will escort the kids across the street or something, and that's not necessary for the one train because you have the overpass, right? It's just the Bronx 12 bus where one stop is on the other side of 10th Avenue. So I was just wondering if there was any idea of some kind of safety procedure for that, and whether also the Department of Transportation made a comment about the danger on that intersection with Post Avenue.
Yeah, I think the Post Road, this is Deirdre Carson, the Post Road
Post
condition is that intersection with 10th Avenue is where they want us to kind of bulb it out and create a reservoir, and I think that will, number one, slow cars down that are going to make the turn and give students more of a place to stay, and also reduce the area they have to walk across. And I think that was the idea that we had for making that a safer transition. I think if we said that they were escorted across the street, that was a mistake. I thought we said they were monitored, and that was this having people out around the school and watching.
Oh, okay. So monitoring, I don't necessarily, that sounds like someone's watching you as you cross the street and making sure that everything's okay, but it's happening 2 blocks away, so it's not.
Well, it's closer than what it occurs now, so our school currently facility is maybe 5-6 blocks away from the 12 bus. So there's no way of us monitoring when they're walking. Now, in the new location, we will be much closer to, it's a corner away. So we can monitor, and we're always walking to the other school, the middle school, which is not far from there.
Okay.
Are there any other questions on
Yeah,
this?
so one was about the parking study. Is there somebody here to talk about that?
I was going to go on to the other questions, but I just wondered if you had concluded if you got what you wanted on this issue, on those issues.
No, that's, yeah.
So there's a question about the manner in which the modal splits were analyzed. And there was a related question about the parking information that we submitted on Friday. Allison and Max will speak to that.
I'm Allison Ruddock with the HB. So for the modal split information, there's quite a bit of information that goes into doing the transportation analysis. And so for modal splits, we did use information from the school based on their current student population and their staff, knowing where they're coming from and going to at the end of the day, and how they get to school. The other information that you see in the EAS is information from other published sources, other environmental assessments, seeker technical manual, and then some American Community Survey reverse journey to work data. And that's for the parts of the inputs to the traffic analysis that the school doesn't have information for. So it's sort of a combined traditional sources, but also specific to the school.
Okay. So then, in terms of the number of drivers, that came from
the
school? Okay. So, because the DOT analysis indicated there was a 137 space shortfall for the project.
Right, so for the transportation analysis, the EAS also looked at the potential effect from displacing the existing parking use, even though the school itself doesn't create a substantial parking demand. Because the existing parking garage will no longer be available to people who park there, the EAS looked at what the effect of moving those cars to other parking facilities might be. So the initial submission looked at the facilities within a quarter mile, and that's where the shortfall was identified. At the suggestion of DOT, we looked at the half-mile parking study area to see if there were some additional facilities that might be able to accommodate that demand. And we provided some information. So yes, there are an additional, I think, 11 facilities. And then the shortfall can be accommodated in those. I think they had an 87% utilization rate. And so with the displaced parking from the new school site, there will actually still be available parking in the area.
Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't forwarded this to DOT yet, because we just wanted clarification on number 6 on the chart with the 20 spaces. Is that the existing?
That's the chart that was emailed on Friday.
Because that address is, we believe, the school address, but there's no parking proposed.
I circled it.
Oh, available capacity. Right, so the shortfall numbers and are not including parking spaces at the facility.
Okay,
Say that again?
the shortfall numbers don't include the parking at the facility.
Right, we're not accounting for any parking spaces at the school site.
Okay, because there was this chart.
Right.
That you have there, and number 6, I believe, is the address of the school. The address of the future school, right?
Yeah. The address of the future school, subject site.
It might still be covered, but we just wanted to clarify if the 20 isn't going to exist anymore, if it should be on.
Right, there are actually more than 20 spaces at the
Right, I don't know where the 20 is.
The 20 was availability after, I don't know based on what. Was it based on looking at it at 4 o'clock in the afternoon? I actually didn't understand what it was based on.
Okay, I think I'm gonna have to check on that one. Okay.
Because shouldn't it be removed?
But
shouldn't it be removed?
Yeah, it should be
Yeah, my
removed.
understanding is that when we looked at both in the initial submission and then looking at the half mile, no parking spaces were accounted for at the school site.
So once we get the
Yeah, so we
clarification,
can
we can
confirm that.
finalize.
Okay. Okay, good. Anything else on that? So, and in terms of the actual utilization rate, just curious, in terms of drivers for the school, teacher drivers, parent, who else would park a car, but teacher drivers?
So, yeah, Jenny Pichardo, I can speak to it. Right now, we have about 30 drivers total in the school, and we have a parking space that we share with our middle school and the church surrounding the school. So we have full access to it in the morning or throughout the day of the school, so 6:30 to 6 p.m. at night. And we assign parking spots to our teachers, and then there's a neighboring parking facility that we have a deal with for $5 a day parking. We stamp it.
In addition, we're proposing to request, this is Deirdre Carson, we're proposing to request on-street parking reserved for the facility from DOT, but that has not yet been done.
On street in front of the building?
Exactly, yes.
Oh, okay. So that becomes like a no parking school hours zone?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Can you, I don't know if that's in the materials, I didn't find it. Can you
It is.
add that stuff? It is?
It is in the materials.
About the $5 parking that's?
$5
no.
parking.
That was just something that's not on there, it's something we worked out over the summer, way
Okay.
before, I mean.
Yeah,
after.
the idea that you have assigned spaces that are shared with the middle school and a church, and that you have a deal with a neighboring facility for discounted rates or whatever it is.
Okay.
You don't have to tell us it's $5.
All right.
Okay.
Another question that was raised had to do with the, it came up in several contexts about the concept of the E-designation, whether or not we could add sufficient notes to drawings to address the noise and air quality issues so that no E-designation on those issues would be necessary. And I think that the answer to that is yes, and I think we know enough now about the project to address those issues. I think we certainly have on the windows, we've given you quite detailed specs
Right.
on what's proposed for the windows, and that they will be fixed, that they will, be triple glazed, that there will be additional insulation put into the walls, all of which will achieve a 41 dBA attenuation in order to achieve an acceptable interior level of noise.
Mhm.
And that there will be mechanical ventilation provided. And I don't know that we have that on the plans, but it's no problem at all to add it because it is in fact what we're going to do. And with respect to the air quality, I think, again, we will have a ventilation system that will address inputs, or intake, but then also with respect to stationary source on site, we will be going to a gas-fired heating system.
Mhm.
So, and we could certainly note that on the drawings if we haven't already. I think with those things, we will have addressed the issues that were raised that potentially generated an E-designation for those.
With respect to air quality and noise?
And noise.
Okay.
I have Nathan Epler from RU here to speak to the hazmat issue, and since I know you wanted to know what the status of that was, so I'd ask him if you could sort of summarize where we are.
Sure. My name is Nathan Epler. I'm a principal hydrogeologist at RU Associates, Inc., which is an environmental consulting and management firm. So it was, I'm part of the team to address any issues that the New York City Office of Environmental Remediation, OER, had regarding the safety of the school and addressing any environmental hazards that may be present. So I was also involved in the due diligence process as a first step of choosing and selecting a site. And so the way that's addressed is we develop a remedial action work plan to address any environmental issues that can affect the health and safety of the occupants. And we submit that to the Office of Environmental Remediation. We meet with them. That remedial action work plan has been approved, and we received a decision document as of August 30th, 2017, which lays out exactly the remedy and the steps that must be taken during the construction as far as the environmental issues
Did
at
we
the
get a
site.
copy of the approval of the work plan? I don't
I
think
wasn't aware it
I
existed,
didn't find it.
so
Okay.
you will have it.
Yeah, okay.
We'll get you a copy. I learned of its existence yesterday.
Okay.
So we'll be involved in the project to ensure that the requirements of the decision document are carried out, and to address any of those issues. And then there will be a site management plan, which will be written after the construction is complete, which will then specify in perpetuity the steps that must be taken to maintain the controls, the engineering controls that are designed to maintain the health and safety of the occupants of the school.
Do you have questions for that?
Any questions?
We consulted with OER and DEP, and they still wanted an E-designation for hazmat on the site. Because it's a voluntary program, that's what DEP is.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, I did want to clarify that. It's in the voluntary clearing program, not the brownfields clearing program. It's a VCP site.
Right, Okay, so whatever is in place that needs to be for the E-designation is in place for us?
We can get it in
We
place.
need to get that done, okay. Okay, I had a question going, did you have other questions about the hazmat? Anybody have those questions? I have a question about the air quality. What I understood on the air quality analysis was that DEP was signing off on the school's potential for being, having an impact on air quality. On a lot of these cases, though probably less so in this case because of the surrounding uses, usually we're also looking at the air quality affecting the students. Is that
Yeah,
something that was looked at?
It was looked at. DEP didn't call it out on their sign-off letter,
Yeah.
if you want us to.
Yeah, I think we should, because then that ties the knot around the findings, that we're always looking at the air quality around the school, so, okay.
Any other questions?
I think so. Any other enviro questions? Okay, no.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Those are the issues that I had in my list of questions, so if there are any others, we would be happy to address them. You wanted some notes on the drawings, and Mr. Hanson is here, but I think those are issues related to the noise attenuation
Mhm.
and the air quality, and I think
That's all that, yeah.
One
those
thing
have
to
be-
note would be if we're not having the E designation for air quality noise, we should revise the EAS to reflect.
yes, and that has been done or will be done in the next day or two.
Okay, so let's just. So you've already put in, how does that, you've already put in a request to DOT to create the bulb?
We have not yet requested it.
Okay. So that, we could make that a condition, right, that a bulb is requested and that that you request that no parking, the special parking zone in front?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right, so there's only just a little bit of corrections to the drawings, the EAS. We need to get the E-designation formalized, okay? Are there any speakers on this besides the team?
We have to.
Everybody's with the team? Or does anybody want to speak
No,
on
these
this?
two
They
are
wanna
here
s-
to speak.
Okay.
You can stand up and go.
Or, yeah, and state your
Good
name,
afternoon,
please.
everyone. My name is Lourdes Fernandez. I live in the community of Inwood, and I'm also a parent of a now 12th grader at Inwood Academy. 7 years ago, in 2010, I made the decision to change my daughter's school and put her in Inwood Academy. She was chosen for the founding class of Inwood Academy for the 5th grade. And it's a decision that I'm very happy I made to date. My daughter did huge academic progress as part of the school. They are all dedicated in ensuring that the students succeed, not only on a year-to-year, day-to-day basis, but they're ensuring that these students succeed in life and in college. And they're ensuring that they're able to get into college and not only get to enroll in college, but actually graduate from college. They're serving a community of children that need this academic health. I find that the public school system has failed our children, and this is an investment in our future. I consider our children to be the future, and this is needed in the community. I think having the school, having a building for our school will do wonders. They've done wonders to date with rented space and not being in the best situation, having 2 separate school buildings, and we first started out in a trailer. So we've come very, very far. The only thing I regret is that my daughter won't be in the school when this building is actually up, but I'm definitely going to visit them. But I strongly urge and hope that you approve the school to be done at this site, because it will be very well worth it for the community, for the children of the community, and in general, just as a whole, for everyone there to have a safe place to send their children to school.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hello everyone, my name is Tomas Trinidad, living in the community for 25 years and working in the community for 20 years. Right now our community is going through a lot of change, and this is going to be one of the best change that I can see. Why? Because what they're doing in our community right now is they're doing restaurant and bars. When they told me they're going to do a school, I said, finally, we're going to have something new, something that's going to bring a positive view for our community. I hope that you approve the projects because it's been so positive. I've been working with youth all my life, and that's going to be another place where I can refer my students for a better future. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. I want to acknowledge that we received, I believe it's today, a letter from the council member, which was a little bit surprising in light of the support from the community board, who was referring to the proposed rezoning, and that the rezoning, and stated something to the effect of the rezoning hasn't been approved yet, and maybe there's further land use studies and so on, and so maybe the school use is premature. So I'd just like you to respond to that kind of a comment.
Idani?
Yeah, yes, actually, yeah. I was surprised to see it because, yeah, and I thought perhaps he misunderstood the status. You spoke to city planning?
Well, I spoke to EDC, and it turns out this project is going to get financed through EDC's Build NYC. The school is going to get financed through Build NYC. And so it's very much in the long-term vision. It seems from the discussion, it seemed like it's in the vision of the long-term plan of this area, and has not been identified as a soft site in their analysis, so.
As a tear down, right.
Right.
Okay,
Um,
yeah.
Can I respond to this?
Yeah,
Christina
please.
Reyes? So we have had extensive conversations with Councilman Idanis' office, and he's very aware of the project. This is not something that is new to him. I know that there is work being done for the larger community in rezoning, and there was a hearing last week about it. And the EDC is very much involved in it, so I don't know if there's some other motive, but there has never been any negative or anything that we've ever heard in reference to the project, so we can call his office and get
No,
further clarification.
Right, I don't know that it's necessary, it's just that we have sort of a mandate here now
Right.
that when there's various statements by community, that we acknowledge them and we address them. So I personally find it confusing, in part
Right.
because you're a school already in the neighborhood, so you're not some interloper somehow or other.
Right.
Clearly, the expansion is essential for the life of the school, and the location, I personally find, even though we're not voting today, but I personally find it's an ideal location for your school. So I don't actually understand, and it's also a great use of this, adaptive reuse of the building.
Yeah.
So, and I'm kind of just conceptually in favor of adaptive reuse when you can do it. So I don't understand his objection, but I wanted to just.
It's a surprise.
Yeah. He
Yeah.
spoke at our 8th grade graduation just a few months ago, very
Yeah.
positively about the school, so I feel like there may be some sort of confusion
Right.
about whether or not
Okay.
the time frame or something.
Well, there has been a lot of, I think it's fair to say that the proposed rezoning has generated some opposition in the community. There's some fear about gentrification and upzoning. And it may be part and parcel of that. There was a major project that was turned down up a few blocks away, which was an MIH project that would have, provided substantial affordable housing to the community, but the trade-off was more density, and the community sent a clear message that was, we'll stick with the lower density, thank you very much, even if we don't get the affordable housing.
And just to further that though, he spoke out at the hearing last Thursday on the entire community rezoning, Councilman Idanis, Congressman Espaillat, about the plan that is currently being proposed to the city for rezoning. And he was very much for it with no reservations. There's a letter that he wrote in conjunction with Manhattan Borough President Gail Brewer, which I actually have, which states that he wanted to expand the zone that had been previously examined for further rezoning. So he actually worked to take rezoning beyond what we would say like the eastern part of Inwood and expand it into the western part of Inwood. And so he has been in favor of rezoning pretty much every step of the way. So once again, just a little bit of a surprise, but maybe there's some sort of
Maybe there's a
misunderstanding.
misunderstanding.
Yeah.
Wouldn't hurt for you to
Find out.
smooth the feathers even.
Yeah.
Yes, sure.
Yeah.
We didn't,
Okay.
you know, because of their extensive outreach and communication with him, as well as the fact that we got this very strong recommendation from the community board, it seems a little bit.
Yeah, and it just arrived today,
Uh-huh.
so we were surprised too. Okay. Okay, so then let's see if we can set a date for all that stuff to happen.
We'd like to ask if it's at all possible, because of the requirements of the school, if it appears that we can do this, that if it's possible, we'd like to submit, close the record and keep it open for the submission of the additional materials and then get a decision date now rather than.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't think there are open issues, right? It's just fixing some drawings and making those changes
Documenting
on the
The
EAS.
transportation review is still open.
Ah,
Sorry, the transportation?
transportation review is open because there's changes that need to be made.
I did, sorry, this is Allison Reddick. I did confirm with someone in our office that the table showing number 6 with 20 spaces at the school site is existing conditions. So that's the available spaces currently.
Today.
Today.
Okay.
And so in looking at the parking shortfall numbers and accounting for that displacement, we're not accounting for anything being available at the school site.
Okay. Does that clarify what
Clarify.
we're missing? She's,
I'm
yeah.
not getting it.
Can I-
Do you understand?
Can I
Yeah,
inquire
yeah.
as to what the process is going to be with DOT, because they take the longest
Right.
procedurally.
They seemed all very comfortable with the, well, you were on the conference call with them, once they were expanding the study, correct? That was what they were looking for, so it would be 20-day review.
Upon
Or
submission of the revised.
Well, if this is accurate, then we
Oh,
can send it.
okay, so it
you're
hasn't
saying
been
the
s-
chart is,
Right, I mean, I think maybe it would be helpful if we submitted a revised, right, we didn't submit a revised transportation.
And the
section.
EIS has to be revised to remove the E designation on
Yeah.
noise and air.
Right.
So,
I'll try to get it ready tomorrow and I'll be able to submit it.
right,
by the
but
end.
so just to understand, is there something technical that you're waiting, like, in terms of funding, where you need to be able to tell somebody that it closed?
Yes,
Yeah.
with Build NYC, in order for the board to hear our project and approve the project, we need to have a definite, the BSA was approved, the special permit is gonna go through.
Okay, but so
so you need a
closing,
vote.
but closing is different than approving.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So-
But I just wanted to move the process forward as
Right,
quickly as possible.
so we frequently close and vote on the same day.
Mhm.
So when we have like an issue that remains open, in other words, we don't know what the outcome of the issue is, but that there's only a little bit that's left to be done,
Okay.
we can look at it, and then we close on the same day and we vote right
Okay.
after. In fact, you
I
witnessed
saw
that at the
it.
beginning of the hearing. They had submitted some documents earlier. Today. We didn't have a chance to review it, so we reviewed it over lunch and we voted on it in the afternoon.
Okay.
So we're open to doing that kind of
Okay,
thing.
so
Okay?
then we'd like to do that.
Okay, if you could have done all this over lunch, that would have
there's always a chance things move faster.
Yes, right, and DOT is often very responsive to us, so let's see. Okay, so how much time to prepare the various materials, first of all, and
So
submit?
I believe you have a hearing on October the 3rd, and then the next one after that would be the 17th.
Correct.
So I think we'd like to aim for the 17th.
Okay, well, if the amount of discussion is de minimis on that
Yeah.
day, then we could possibly.
Well, if we could do the 3rd, we would like to do the 3rd, but,
I don't think, no, you won't have the time because DOT needs to have the time to
20
review
days.
the materials, right? So today's So the first question is, when will you submit the materials?
I think we can have the materials in by the end of this week. There's
Okay.
nothing very significant that has to be provided.
All right, so that's submitting, let's say by the 22nd, they get sent to DOT by the 25th.
But the
Right.
DOT information you already have, do you need any more information?
Not if the chart is the up-to-date chart.
Okay.
I can send it today.
Okay, so
You're
that could be
saying
sent today.
Up-to-date chart.
You can have that chart updated.
So the third
Does it
two-
need to be updated?
Yeah, I don't
Oh,
think it
oh, it
needs
doesn't,
Does it
I'm
need to
sorry.
be updated?
Apologies.
So, but we just need, so maybe Tracy, you could get on the phone together and just go through the materials to understand how you decided that the chart is existing conditions.
Yeah.
Right,
But
okay.
Maybe we put a footnote on it, just to.
Right, I think it's just extracted for
Yeah.
previous submission, but okay.
Yeah, okay. And then, okay, and then, so is there anything, and then we need to get the EAS updated?
Yeah.
That would be done by the end of the week?
We started that, actually.
Okay. And then we need the E-designation?
And you want the revised DEP letter, which.
And the revised DEP letter on air quality. So let's be realistic, so we don't have to adjourn.
You guys will procure I'm sorry, that's very informal. The board will procure the letter from DEP, and so you have to tell us what time will be required.
I was thinking 20 days, just to be safe.
Yeah, so 20 days doesn't get us really till the 18th, the 17th, right? Or does it? Well, it's almost 20 days. Does the 17th get us there? Which is worse, 31st or the 17th?
But
All
the
that.
17th is actually,
The 17th is, this is the one where we have this gigantic case. Two gigantic cases. Let's do the 30th. Let's do the 31st, because that way it gives us a little time, a little leeway, and we have a killer day on the 17th to prepare for, so.
I have to, on behalf of my clients, ask if there's any possibility, because this is not a major, it's not going to be a major amount of
But
material.
I'm
presented.
concerned that you won't have the information in time. So, in which case we'd end up, because it's only the 17th, we don't have the 24th. Unless? I just don't even like it takes time to find out that it's not ready.
Yeah, I think that's the 30th.
Yeah, I think the 31st is what we're gonna have to do, because otherwise, it takes up an adjournment position, and it's likely to be adjourned because we won't hear from DEP in time. Or DOT, right, okay? It's only basically, it's a 2-week difference. Not even, it's a week difference.
Two?
Well,
Yeah, because we don't have a hearing until 24th.
we don't have a hearing on the 24th, that's 1 week. And then at 1 week, it's 2.
Sorry, no matter how you slice it, it's 2.
Okay, all right, so the submissions need to be made immediately, so I'm not even gonna give a date on them, they just need to be made immediately in order for this to happen. Okay, just understand, we're making lots of special efforts here, this was a special hearing, we never have these, except for situations like this, and.
and we're booked into December.
And we're booked into December, and it's only the commissioners and staff that suffer when we have too many things on a hearing day, so, okay.
We appreciate the efforts that have been made to move this along.
Okay.
And do our best to meet the requirements that you have for us.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Yes, that makes 26 on the 30th.
Okay, we're back on the record. Item number 2, new cases, zoning calendar, 2017-244 BC, 2208 Bowler Avenue, the Bronx.
Good afternoon, Eugene Tillman on behalf of Eric PC for the Co-op City Baptist Church. This is an application pursuant to section 7221 to reinstate a previously approved variance. that approved construction of a use group 3 church community center in an R32 district. Since then, the district has changed to R3A, and, but that doesn't affect any of the bulk attributes of the application. This application was originally brought as an extension of time and a letter of substantial construction in order to accelerate the process and allow the Co-op City Baptist Church to secure a loan that they have been fighting for since 2004. The loan closed on June 30th, and they are fully ready to commence construction, and as such, they're bringing this application to reinstate. We attended your review session yesterday, and let's go over some of the easier stuff at first. As for service on the community board, service was duly submitted to all parties, and it was provided to the BSA by cover letter dated August 28th. Our office also presented to the community board on August 12th, and the full board will hear the matter on September 28th. We realized that you received several letters of objections from the neighbors in regard to the excavation and site conditions. We were not aware of this situation until a couple of days ago. We reached
There are
out.
complaints filed against the property starting in 2008.
There are 43 complaints logged against the property on BizWeb, but there are no open violations. Department of Buildings most recently inspected the site on May 19th, 2017. It was in response to a violation for a fence. And based on the disposition on BizWeb, no violation was warranted for fence conditions. You know, we're not aware of any structural issues at the site. It was previously excavated, and I believe partial shoring was done.
I thought shoring was only done on 3 sides out of required 4 sides.
So partial shoring was done, right?
Yeah, but how do you do partial shoring when you have an excavation
Well,
that's got 4 sides?
These are the facts of the matter, so we're just presenting you that it was partially.
So then that would
shored.
account for undermining adjacent property. So how could you not be aware of undermining adjacent property when there's only been partial shoring? I don't even know what partial shoring means. That's called digging a hole without supporting your excavation. That's not allowed.
Right, we were not aware that the adjoining properties were impacted, that there had been any settling or any shifting.
I'm gonna go back. Excavation without support is not permitted. So it was unpermitted excavation without support, which naturally will undermine an adjoining property because it's against the law. That's why you support excavation. So to say that we weren't aware we were undermining our adjacent property, it's like circular reasoning. Either you comply with the law or you don't. Otherwise, the law assumes you're going to undermine the property. Otherwise, you wouldn't have shoring requirements.
Understood, but
Okay, so you need to support the excavation, and it needs to be done now, okay? And you need to make whatever repairs are needed by reaching out to the neighbors. And if the neighbors' properties were undermined, you have to repair their properties.
could we get an expert opinion as to the conditions of the site and whether the...
That's, engineers are the ones who support excavation, right? So they'll go and they'll inspect the excavation, which they were supposed to have done when the excavation was done in the first place, and install the proper shoring for the excavation, and inspect the neighbor's property. You're gonna need to do that. I don't know how to explain this any better.
No,
Right?
we fully
Okay.
understand, and we would be more than happy to go to the site and make sure that everything there is copacetic. Just a question that I had, if shoring is not required immediately, and if a letter from an engineer or a general contractor would suffice to establish that shoring could be done at the start of construction, for example. One of the issues...
Didn't we receive those letters now, like in response to this application?
Yes.
So I would then assume that the instability of their homes is now.
Yes.
As opposed to...
Plus,
point in
there
the
are
past.
complaints filed as in 2008 and 2009, some other dates, about the property owner complaining that their property is being undermined by the hole in the ground, which you're not allowed to build ever.
I mean, fully understood, and we totally agree with you. The issue is the financing and the funding for this case. So the loan closed on June 30th, but disbursements are related to the specific plans, the approval of which is keeping the funds from being distributed.
Okay, so here's the thing. Your client is currently in violation of the law. They need to hire, and I don't care how they get the money, that's not our problem. They need to hire an engineer, and they need to go to their neighbors, and they need to clear up the situation, because we don't give waivers to bad actors. We just don't. And so it's not, we're gonna do it when we get an approval. You're gonna take care of your neighbors now and take care of whatever's required by law. So there's an engineer who has to come on the site and do whatever's necessary to be done with a hole in the ground and make the corrections to the neighboring property, et cetera, et cetera. I'm just gonna say it over and over again.
Understood. We would be more than
Okay.
happy to proceed accordingly.
Good.
There were also some comments about the actual proposed building once the excavation and the shoring situation is remedied that we would like to discuss. In particular, an as-of-right development. As you correctly pointed out yesterday, the site would require 3 15-foot front yards and a side yard with an aggregate width of 10% of perimeter walls. So when combined, this would result in a building that is approximately 23 feet, even considering an 8-foot side yard. And as such, the lot would be inadequate to support the house of worship, especially the sanctuary and the fellowship hall. They're not conducive to a long tunnel-like condition. They're more better to be open layout and open to the public. So as such, even as this application is treated as a new variance, we believe that it meets all of the findings based on the narrow width of the lot and the underlying yard requirements.
Wait a minute.
I think you're jumping to the conclusion and you haven't completed your application yet. You're relying on the resolution to establish your programmatic needs, even though the project has changed since the resolution. You don't have an as-of-right set of plans that you could even discuss its deficiencies with. So you really have to go back and flesh out this application with detail.
Right, so when, that's, the comments yesterday was that the application was lazily put together. You can't say, my programmatic needs drive the whole thing. There's either a unique physical condition, which there isn't, right? It's a 40-foot wide, very long lot. Is that a unique condition? You would have to show us that there are no other 40-foot wide, long lots. So that's why it wasn't used as a unique condition in the last application. What you rely on here is, this is a house of worship, is it not?
Yes, this is a house of worship
Okay.
and community center.
So you rely on the house of worship and the deference to religious institutions for your A finding. But you also have to explain, well, why do they need a variance in the first place? They need a variance because the 40-foot deep by 190-foot long lot has all of these restrictions.
And we'd be more than happy to
Okay.
To incorporate that into our.
Okay, you need to go systematically through, it's not, and you need to do this rigorously and not casually. It's an application for a variance. And not assume the prior application, which expired.
Given the timeframes that we were given to file the application, as you know, on May, the board held a vote on the extension of time application, and then a couple of months, 2 to 3 months had gone by with no resolution, and then we were informed by phone call and email that, the board does not have jurisdiction to grant an extension of time to complete construction, and that what would be placed on the September calendar, so as such, the turnaround time for the application did not give us adequate time to engage consultants, to engage in a programmatic needs report, but we would be more than happy to go back and bring the application up to your standards.
Okay, good. All right. All right, so let's see. So we also need corrections on the zoning calculation chart, right? So the
Yes.
zoning district has changed. So you need to make sure that your architect is scouring through the zoning resolution to make sure that the change in the zoning district didn't affect other things about the site.
We did review that yesterday. We believe that for community facility buildings and residential districts, the FAR, lot coverage, front yard, side yard, and parking requirements would be applicable because they apply to all R3 districts regardless of letter suffix. So we believe that just the sections in the district would have to be revised in the form, but the minimums and maximums indicated and the proposed figures correspond to what's proposed, but we would, of course, have that revised for you.
So, go ahead. Well, so what about the parking?
Issues were raised about the parking and the role of the garage next door across Hunter Street and what role it plays. They actually have a deal with the church where they provide $2 parking for the day. Members park there, they provide, they get a ticket, which is stamped at the church, and upon return to the garage, they only pay $2. We have been informed that the garage is generally open, the roof area is almost never filled, so although they don't have a reserved queue for the church, parking is not going to be an issue. It is available directly across the street.
Okay, but there's a parking requirement for this site, for this use, which was not waived either. I don't know how in the last application.
We went back to the documents. The 2004 approved plans did not show any parking spaces, but the resolution did not indicate a parking waiver. An amendment by letter in 2005 was amended to reflect that parking had also been waived without any changes.
I didn't see an amendment that waived parking.
It was referenced in the 2006 letter of substantial compliance. Here's a copy of the letter. The first paragraph indicates that the parking requirement had been waived by letter, but there were no changes to the plans except the elimination of subselling.
Can you waive parking by letter?
Well, it wasn't waived. There was no parking in the originally approved plans. It was an administrative change to indicate that parking had been one of the waivers. But the 2004 BSA approved plans.
Well, this one, actually, the word parking is kind of flying at the end of the sentence. I don't know what parking is doing in the sentence. It says,
So, this is
construction
the
of a church with waivers of applicable requirements for floor area height, setback, open space and
No
yards,
parking.
and later through a letter amendment, parking. Where's the letter amendment?
The letter amendment, I believe we submitted previously. I don't have a hard
We
copy.
don't
but
have it.
We would be more than happy to provide it as well.
There's a
Okay.
prior approved plans.
Those are 2004 plans. They show no parking spaces, and the resolution is silent on parking waivers. So I believe that was the discrepancy. If you look at the plans, no parking is shown, but the resolution says it's yard, lot area, and floor area.
Okay, so I'm just gonna go back again. I don't understand how the conclusion is that there's a parking waiver that was granted, but in any event, you don't have a objection from DOB for a parking waiver. For a parking,
Yeah.
waiver. So.
Just get a revised
you-
objection.
Yeah, you have to get a revised objection or we don't have the authority to grant a waiver.
Understood.
Okay, I just don't, but I would love to see that amendment letter. I just don't see it. Okay. And in terms of requesting the amendment, then you're going to have to go through in your statement what the parking needs are of the institution, and then where people are going to be parking instead. And if people walk to the institution, then indicate where they're walking from, because it can't be further than a quarter mile from the facility. And if they're going to be using public transportation to get there, what is it, where is it, how is it?
Could it have been a CPC waiver? It's a religious
It could have,
institution.
maybe you applied for a
When-
CPC special permit,
Yeah.
because it doesn't make, the board doesn't grant parking waivers by letter. So the only thing that I can think of is that, yeah, in the subsequent letter, it made reference to a city planning special permit or something like that.
Because everyone lives within a quarter
There's a city
mile.
planning certification to waive parking for houses of worship, but due to the time constraints and the fact that the loan closed on June 30th and that the church is,
No,
No, I mean
you're
referring to
misunderstanding.
2004.
Yeah, the board doesn't have the authority to grant a parking waiver by letter. So I doubt seriously a grant was, a waiver
it was granted by variance. The 2004 plans, they do not show, it's a full lot coverage building in the 2004 plans.
If it didn't say in the resolution specifically that parking was waived, then there wasn't a specific grant. So the board could have assumed, for example, that there was off-site parking, or that you were going to apply to city planning for a special permit to waive the parking. And the reference on this 2006 letter that says a letter amendment parking might have been a letter saying, we acknowledge city planning's waiver of the parking. You know, it just procedurally, it makes no sense.
Or correction, but we're gonna pull that letter of substantial compliance. It might have been just a resolution amendment without a new resolution by letter. But we will clarify that and we'll pull that letter for you.
All right, but nonetheless, this is a new variance.
Yes.
So you need to establish that there won't be havoc because there's no parking. So you need to show how many people will need to park. So you're gonna need a parking consultant or parking study of some type, okay? Programmatic needs. No longer rooftop play area, yeah, there were all of these things that were changed, right?
There were some changes since the initial 2004 approval to the programmatic needs. The most significant was the elimination of the subseller letter in 2006. The subseller contained fitness studios, a dance studio, choir rehearsal, and some locker rooms for the fitness area. Most of those uses have been eliminated from the program due to the cost of excavating. I believe there's a rock and a high water table, but it's cost prohibitive to have a subcellar at the site. So as a result, the choir rehearsal is going to be located at the cellar level, and the fitness studio and the dance studio will be eliminated. But the real programmatic need of the church is for the sanctuary and the fellowship. They have Sunday dance, clothing services, senior lunch, banquet, worship services, and in addition to that, there's counseling and tutorials in school and a nursery, which will be serviced by the classrooms and offices on the 3rd and 4th floors. So the changes to the plan since the original grant are really mostly to the administrative offices and a reconfiguration of the location of the classrooms and offices. But the building square footage is comparable to what it was approved in 2004. And the programmatic needs of the church are fully met by this building.
Okay, so you're gonna need to get into that in your statement,
And we had provided a chart of the floor-by-floor changes, but we're gonna discuss basically the uses that'll be in those correlated
Right,
rooms.
and why you need what you need, right?
Right, absolutely.
Right, okay. And why they need to be X big, or how many, et cetera, right?
Yes,
Yes,
we will
okay,
fully justify
right.
all waivers sought.
All right, are there any other things?
EAS.
The EAS, oh, right. So we need the EAS updated, right?
We
Or
submitted an
do-
EAS yesterday, but as we adjusted parking, et cetera, we may make further changes.
Okay. All right. Anything else? Did I leave anything else out? No? All right, are there any speakers on this? No? All right, so our next hearing availability is December.
You just asked.
I asked.
I just
Sorry.
asked.
Nobody decided if they wanted to speak, that's
Okey
right.
dokey. That's fine.
November 21?
Is there anything earlier, given
No.
back?
No. November 21 is the, right? Yeah, I'm looking at it. I just don't know what it means. Amendment to modify, additional 98.
Oh.
It's only this green one. Okay. Four-story residential building.
Could we have,
Four-story-
could we have a speaker present? I apologize.
Sure, yeah.
Hi, I'm Candace Fine Touch. How are you, everybody, today?
Hi. You can come closer if you want.
Okay.
If you want, that's your
Sure.
choice. It's
So actually, I was the one that put together the loan for Coke City Baptist Church. And I've worked a really long, hard time in trying to make sure that we didn't only get partial financing, that we got financing for the whole project, which is $6.6 million. And the bank is ready to lend the money. I put everything together, lined everything up. We have the construction manager with the construction manager from the lending group. The architect, everybody's ready to go. We have the builder, we have actually a contract with the builder, and it would really be a deterrent to the whole project if we have to wait much longer. I know, based on the minutes before that, it was, I thought, granted. So I understand that we had to go through this process again. I understand, you know, discretionary agency, and you have to do it your way, and that's fine. But is there any way that you guys could, you know, you people could speak and make this sooner than the November date? I'll tell you why, because right now we've missed a lot of the summer months in expecting to get the formal okay of the grant, which we had expected from Eric Platnick's office some time ago, and I kept on asking when it was coming, and it never really came. And now the lender wants to move forward, you know, and we have to actually get the builder paid, the people that are involved in the loan paid, and it's really a problem if we have to wait that long. I mean, because I acquired the financing, and I don't know how long the lender's gonna wait. If I had to go back and tell them, well, you know what, we can't start drawing the money until the middle of November, when it's the middle of the winter months of building, that really stops the project a lot, you know. And if there were anything that happened to any of the houses, which I don't really believe, it was because of the shoring, which you had mentioned, because I do believe that the shoring was done correctly with engineers, builders at the time. And then there was no financing, so we were not able to move forward and get the foundation in to make sure that, you know, we started the project. This really creates a problem. And it actually could kill the financing for the project. I don't know if it's November 29th, if this bank is still gonna be there. You know, I think that we may have to look for a different bank at that time, if that were to be.
So I want to put a reality spin on this.
Sure.
Just because we continue the hearing to another date, doesn't mean that that's the end of the hearing process. It depends on what we see, what's submitted, what the condition of the site is at the time that we are looking at it the next time. So I wouldn't count on whatever your funding schedule is to be, for us to meet your funding schedule. We, you know.
No,
let's
we
just-
started this process actually, you know, more than a year ago.
Right.
So I'm not basing it on your schedule at all. I'm
Right.
just basing it on the fact that I was lucky enough to find a lender that really found that the architect was credible, the builder was credible, and all the people surrounding this project were gonna move forward. And that they specifically lend to this particular type of a, you know, of a project. And also, we were able to get, I'm just saying, a 4.75 rate for construction during 2 years, the first 2 years of construction, and then it goes to 6.25. I mean, to find a loan like this again would really be a miracle. I mean, I just really got lucky, and I worked very hard to put this together. So, you know, I'm asking, you know, on my behalf, you know, and the church's behalf, if there's anything that, you know, you could all speak about to, you know, work on our behalf. You don't have to let us know now. I mean, it's discussed with, you know, everybody.
No, actually, we set the hearing, right now, we had set the hearing schedule, and I don't know if you weren't in the room when we just looked at a school that has to start its construction soon, and we put priorities on schools, right? Our hearing schedule is so packed that it's not physically possible for the commissioners to review this many applications. So November 21st is our first available time when we can physically do this. I mean, we're actually talking about a physical impossibility. It's not a lack of desire, it's an inability physically to do it.
But
So
based on the minutes before, wasn't this really previously granted?
No.
Or it was not formally granted?
An extension of time. So you were advised last year, I believe, right? November of last
2016,
year,
yeah.
that the request to make the modification in the cellar by letter was acceptable by letter, but you were advised that the variance had lapsed and you needed to come in for an extension, a new variance.
Reinstatement.
Because a reinstatement, right? And that application was never filed. So, right, so the board ended up granting an extension of time to complete because that's all that was filed. But the extension of a reinstatement of the variance was never requested. So here we are, trying to kind of clean things up with a project that's different than the last project. And different conditions and all that sort of stuff. The variance was granted a long time ago. Okay,
Thank you so much.
Sure. All right, so November 21 for continued hearing with submission on
October 31st.
No, November 1.
November 1st.
Yeah,
Okay.
November 1.
Okay, this concludes the public hearing for September 19, 2017.